Welcome to Mydogspies. This being the first video, I'll take my freedom to be a tiny bit philosophical. I promise, I'll get to the point soon. It's amazing sometimes how things happen out of pure coincidence. Like this video, for example. I was looking for some inspiration and I happened to come across the pages of one of those famous VFX studios for film that we happen to have here where I live. They were looking for someone to build a React interface for their pipeline. I assume they write a lot of bespoke tools for things like Maya, Nuke or Houdini. But what does it take to make an interface? For example, between Houdini and React. I've never done it before. I actually never worked professionally in a film studio of any kind, although it was my dream for a very long time and still is. But I was simply curious, so I sat down the same evening and tried to find out. As it often is, these are little secrets that nobody seems to have the need to share. I mean, once inside, you have the people around you to ask, and the internet becomes of less importance, I guess. But what if you already know React? What if you dabble, like an amateur that is, in Houdini or Maya or any of those apps? And just want to find the tips and direction in which you need to go in order to move on? What if you already have the basics and you just need that one nudge forward? There are many tutorials on the net made to the level of almost short films. Wonderful work by highly talented people that should have far more credits than they probably get. But that is not my goal here. What I thought for some time is to try to bridge that gap between beginners and the pros, to approach some of the things I learned on my zigzaggy path in between the two. So, welcome to Mydogspies and to my video on how to make React to communicate with SideFX Houdini. It's not perfect code. It is for sure not the only way. And I'm more than grateful for anyone to tell me what the proper way is, the way you guys do it in your studios. But it is the way I figured it out, on the most basic novice level. And it was a couple of hours of research and that journey of gathering knowledge I really enjoy. So, rant over, back to the topic, how do we make React talk to Houdini? All the following code examples are on GitHub, and I'll leave the links to all resources below. In order to connect React to Houdini, one needs three components: the React frontend, a Python backend, and some means to communicate between the backend and Houdini itself. React is a pretty cool tool in that it's completely backend agnostic. How the API is generated does not matter, as long as it's reachable across the network. Houdini is written in Python, and it does make sense to use a pure Python backend due to the fact that Houdini's internal Python version, the so-called Hython, comes with a library that interfaces with Houdini's API directly. This library is a wrapper for RPyC, and it is called HRPyC. And here comes the first crux. As far as I understood it, under Windows it can only be called from within Hython itself. Under Linux one can run Houdini also on the global OS distro, but not so under Windows. But feel free to write me if I'm wrong on that one. Since HRPyC must run under Hython on Windows, and Windows is what I used for this exercise, means that the necessary Flask libraries must be installed into Hython itself. Finally, the last piece of the puzzle comes with HRPyC itself. It must run as a server before a connection is made, from within Houdini itself, which means that an instance of Houdini must be up and running prior to attempting to connect via the back end. That was easily solved though by simply starting Houdini from a script, in which we also tell it to run an instance of HRPyC server on startup. The Python interpreter used by Flask must be Hython, which in this particular case happens to be Python 2.7.15, since it was the only version of Houdini I could test this on at the moment of writing. I assume it will work equally well with Python 3. Whatever. In IntelliJ, one must set the interpreter in the project settings. And of course, not forget to install all imports needed into Hython itself. The way I did it was to install pip first, then the external Flask libraries, using the terminal directly within the Hython distro. Finally, the two following lines must be added to the Windows path in order for it to work, at least on my system. And here is what my test actually looks like. First we start Houdini from React. Then I can change the color of the spheres. This may not look like much, but then remember that via HRPyC we interface with the How module and thus basically have the access to the entire Houdini API. I did not test it on any other setup, so no clue how easy or not it would be, for example in Visual Studio or even PyCharm, but I will assume it will work accordingly. Same goes for other Python backends such as Django. I hope this video has given you a tiny insight on where to start when trying to make React talk to Houdini. I did this in a few hours on a Friday evening, which probably says a lot about my reality, and I am aware of that it's not beautiful code, but that was also not the point. I may take this particular thing further, but maybe it also would be interesting to see how it's done with Maya. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I would be grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, feel free to leave comments on other ways of connecting Houdini with React.